Well, hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to layer skincare products. Honestly, this is a video I have put off making because every time I sit down to think about making it, I get a headache. Because, truth be told, there are no rules when it comes to layering or applying skincare products, but there are some principles of applying skincare products that I think can be helpful. But be aware, there are a lot of caveats and nuances, so it's really just hard to give generalizable information. So I'll do the best I can. A simple skincare routine should be sunscreen, cleanser, moisturizer, those three things. And you know, you can't really screw up putting that on. Wash your face, put on a moisturizer. If it's daytime, put on sunscreen. But throw in all of the serums, toners, essences. It starts to get really complicated. Principle number one, skincare ingredients, when applied to damp skin, are going to have better penetration. However, with that comes an increased risk of irritation. Some people fixate on applying in an order from thinnest to thickest. Does that make sense? To a certain extent, perhaps, especially in the realm of cosmeceuticals. Thinner things tend to be aimed at adding hydration to the skin. A lot of hyaluronic acid serums, for example, would fit into this category of things that you would want to apply first after cleansing the skin to, and ideally to damp skin, so that they can really lock into that hydration. Peptide serums are another example of this. Niacinamide is something that easily can be applied to a damp skin as well. It's a non-irritating ingredient, has moisturizing benefits, and you'll get good absorption that way. If you want to apply niacinamide as the last step of your skincare routine though, it probably will absorb on your skin and you'll be just fine. It's not like if you did it last, it's not working. But some products that are labeled as serums or toners, they have active ingredients that can be irritating, and applying them to damp skin, it's not to say that you can't, it's just to make you aware of the fact that applying them to damp skin is going to increase the irritation of those already at baseline irritating ingredients. For example, you can find salicylic acid serums. La Roche-Posay makes a great one. They're pore minimizing, I forget what it's called. That serum is really good, it has salicylic acid in it, or their modified salicylic acid. See, it gets even more confusing. You know, a lot of alpha hydroxy acid serums, that ordinary BHA, AHA peeling solution that people are fascinated with. Technically, you probably could apply that on damp skin, but it's going to be a lot more irritating. So, you know, that's the kind of product that you might want to wait until the skin is dry. I also hear a lot of commentary about applying things kind of based on their pH. No, I wouldn't focus on that either. The pH of your skin is somewhere in the ballpark between 4 and 5, and most skincare products, with the exception of benzoyl peroxide, are going to have an acidic pH. And so trying to order them by pH makes no sense. They're all going to end up kind of mixing together anyway, and like this really doesn't do you any service. The one exception to that is when it comes to vitamin C serums. A lot of people, so long as you are tolerating the vitamin C serum okay and it's not irritating, one way to enhance the penetration of the vitamin C serum is to wash your face with an alpha hydroxy acid or beta hydroxy acid face wash, because it will lower the pH of your skin a little bit more and make the pH just a little bit closer to the pH of the vitamin C serum, so that you'll get better absorption of that. So that's kind of one exception to that, but honestly, it really does not matter at all. Now, I kind of alluded to this earlier with niacinamide, but really, most ingredients, it doesn't matter the order that you put them on, they're going to absorb to a certain extent. And with the exception of good old Vaseline, or just anything that's 100% petrolatum. Petrolatum is one of the most occlusive thing out there. It really helps lock in hydration and prevent transepidermal water loss. It's a great skin protectant. But because it's so good at doing that, if you try and put other stuff on top, they're not going to get in. Yeah, this is really occlusive and creates a barrier to water loss. This is one of the reasons in my skincare routine, you'll see me put Vaseline or CeraVe Healing Ointment, which is a petrolatum-based product, on my lips and to my eyelids, because I don't want my retin-A getting in those areas. It can be very irritating in those areas. So, you know, it really does, it creates like a block to other ingredients getting in. So that's kind of the one exception. But moisturizing creams, lotions, stuff's gonna get through that. It's fine, it's fine. We actually have studies in patients using moisturizers as first ingredients and then later applying active prescription medications and showing that the ingredients get in just fine. So honestly, the order really doesn't matter that much. Speaking of prescription medications though, you do want to be a little bit more mindful of order when it comes to applying prescription medications. Your best bet is to clarify with your dermatologist, not with me, with your dermatologist. I get tons of questions every day. I've been given a prescription for X, Y, and Z. What order do I apply it? Don't ask me, ask them, because there are nuances depending on the skin condition that's being treated and what other things they may have co-prescribed. So always ask them, clarify, and have them write it down. That way you have it in case you forget. A lot of prescription topicals, we do encourage the patients to apply them to the skin while it's damp to increase absorption. For example, topical clindamycin, topical metronidazole, topical azelaic acid. However, some medications, including azelaic acid, we realize can be a little irritating. Some patients find they're more irritating than others. And in those cases, then we will advise the patient to apply moisturizer first, let the moisturizer fully dry, and then apply the active ingredient. But for things like topical clindamycin, topical erythromycin gel, these things aren't irritating generally. I mean, not whatsoever. I mean, maybe the vehicle can be a little irritating for people, but putting it onto the skin while it's damp will increase the penetration, and so that is often recommended. But honestly, talk to your derm because it'll be slightly nuanced depending on your condition. But one ingredient that is both prescription and over-the-counter is azelaic acid. I get a lot of questions on how to layer that. It really doesn't matter for azelaic acid. You can put it on first or you can put it on last. So long as you're not putting it on over a layer of petrolatum, it's gonna be fine. As a matter of fact, we have studies looking at azelaic acid applied after Cetaphil moisturizing cream, I think was what the study was. Let's see. Yeah, Cetaphil. They also showed CeraVe and Dove. So CeraVe, Dove, Cetaphil moisturizers, azelaic acid has been shown to work just fine when applied over those. Prescription retinoids are very irritating. Tazarotene, tretinoin, and even prescription and over-the-counter adapalene can be very irritating. And we always thought that if the patient applied them after a moisturizer, that might interfere with the absorption of the topical vitamin A. But we now have studies showing that that's not true. And in fact, using the moisturizer reduces the irritation, makes it easier to tolerate, so the patient sticks with it and ultimately gets very good control from the topical retinoid. So, you know, there's no rule that says that you can't apply a topical retinoid to damp skin, but it's more likely to be irritating. You're better off seeing how you tolerate it on dry skin or moisturized skin. The next point that I'll make is that when it comes to layering products, you know, the products, it's not like you put it on and then like there's a shield and you can put the next layer on and the next layer on. They're all gonna start mixing together. And so you can get some dilution of active ingredients because of that. That's another reason I always emphasize keeping your routine minimal, because the more things you start using and layering, you're kind of getting a delusional effect of those active ingredients. In order to avoid that, one other thing that you should do is to try and let some of your products absorb and dry fully before going on to the next layer. That can help. One exception to that is your hyaluronic acid serums. You can go ahead and apply those onto damp skin and then just put your moisturizer on right over it. The hyaluronic acid will bind onto water on the surface of the skin and penetrate into the top layer of the skin, and then the heavier moisturizer, which likewise probably has some hyaluronic acid in it anyways, will seal in that hydration. If you put hyaluronic acid serum on damp skin or on dry skin, and then you let it dry, it'll actually pull out more water from your skin. So it's a good idea to just go ahead and put your moisturizer on in that situation right over it while it's still damp. But beyond that, letting letting the products absorb fully between steps is a good way to avoid this dilution issue. And it's also a good way to avoid product pilling or balling or rolling. I have a video on that. And then the last product in your skincare routine in the morning should be your sunscreen. You always want to put sunscreen on last. So I find that it's best to make sure that whatever you're using in the morning, if you have some complicated skincare routine, is to let everything dry on the skin fully before getting ready to put on your sunscreen, because the sunscreen is intended to form a film, and a lot of sunscreens are water resistant, and it can be, they can pill or ball if you put them on while the skin is kind of damp, or there are a lot of wet products on the skin. So let all of that absorb fully before putting your sunscreen on. I mean, a lot of people get up fairly early in the morning, do their skincare routine first. They're, in their home, it's not even light out yet. So it's not like you have to put sunscreen on right away. Let that stuff absorb fully and dry. And then about 20 minutes before you're gonna leave for the day, then take the time to put on your sunscreen. You can layer different sunscreens. You can layer chemical sunscreens and mineral sunscreens. I talked about this in a recent video, but a lot of people asked me about that. Yes, there were some studies in the past suggesting that if you layer zinc oxide sunscreens with chemical sunscreens containing avobenzone, that the zinc oxide would accelerate the rate of avobenzone degradation, but we found out that that's really not true in real world use, so it's fine to layer them. Just make sure that each layer dries fully before going on to the next. You don't want to mix two different sunscreens together before putting them on. That can mess up the SPF. And that brings me to my next point. I always get questions about mixing things, and this is a big thing in skincare. They'll, like different skincare lines, they have different products that they encourage you to mix into like your moisturizers and things like that. And I say skip all of that, because you can run into issues with distribution of the active ingredient in terms of consistency. Like you can end up with a patchy application. Like say for example, you spike in azelaic acid into your moisturizer. I think Paula's Choice encourages you to do that with the azelaic acid booster. If you do that, like, it can end up with patchy application. So I don't suggest doing that. I think it's better to layer things. And with sunscreen, you definitely want to layer it. I do think, a lot of derms actually will tell their patients to mix in a little bit of retinol with their moisturizer, but I'm not a fan of that. I don't recommend doing that because again, it can lead to patchy application. Just apply the pea-sized amount of tretinoin very precisely to clean, dry, moisturized skin is what I typically tell people to do, and that will give you consistent application and avoid like patchy unevenness. Last thing you want is a ton of tretinoin in one location and none in the other. Irritating one place and no medication in the other. So I don't recommend the mixing thing with medications. I say just put them on the skin as is. I mean, they're already formulated in a vehicle that is basically intended to be moisturizing as is, so go ahead and put them on as they are. I don't recommend mixing them. But again, this is one of those things that you have to discuss with your treating doctor. I can't tell you guys how to use your prescription medications on YouTube. That's just not something I can do. First of all, it's not appropriate. Second of all, it's not possible. There are too many differences and things unknowns for me to address that. So yeah, definitely talk to your derm about that. At the end of the day, like I said, order really doesn't matter that much, so don't lose sleep over it. Keep your skincare routine really minimal so it avoids these unknowns of how ingredients might interact with one another. Keeping your skincare routine very minimal also reduces the dilutional effect and also reduces the risk of irritation. The more things that you put on your skin, the more likely you are to experience irritation. But beyond just putting Vaseline on your face and then putting other things on top, most things are gonna get into your skin regardless. So don't worry too much about it. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. Honestly, it's a video I've had you know, struggled to make for a while, because it's like, there's so many like little tiny variables in these things and a lot of unknowns, and there are no right answers. But I hope these points were useful to you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.